Before we start, ask yourself this. Have you ever ignored someone who might have once built the person you are today? Because the story you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's a reminder that greatness often wears humble shoes. Monday mornings in downtown Chicago always carried that same rhythm. The clatter of heels against marble floors, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the chill of early autumn air, and the low hum of office chatter filling the glass-walled corridors of Westmart Corporate Tower. For most people, it was just another day to chase numbers and deadlines. But for me, Emma Collins, Senior Operations Manager, it was about control, precision, and keeping everything perfectly balanced. Until that morning, when a soft knock at the meeting room door disrupted the usual flow. "Ma'am, should I place the water?" came a calm, weathered voice. I turned slightly halfway through a budget presentation and saw him, Mr. Harris, the office janitor. He was probably in his mid-60s, dressed neatly in his uniform, posture straight, silver hair combed back, eyes clear and gentle. He was holding a tray of glasses with both hands, steady and careful, as though each drop mattered. Our new regional director, a sharp-tongued executive named Mark Reynolds, frowned. "Next time, don't interrupt without being called." A faint chuckle escaped from a few team members. The atmosphere tightened. Mr. Harris just nodded quietly and said, "Yes, sir. Sorry about that." His tone carried neither irritation nor shame, only quiet dignity. As he placed the tray on the corner table, I noticed the slight tremor in his hands, not from weakness, but restraint, like someone who had learned to swallow pride 1,000 times before. When he left, the tension faded, and Mark joked, "Some people just don't understand boundaries." Everyone laughed politely. I didn't. Hours later, after the long meeting ended and the office began to empty, I walked past the cleaning crew, the air faintly scented with lemon disinfectant. There he was again, kneeling by the window, polishing the glass carefully, humming an old tune I couldn't quite place. I watched for a moment before heading out, but something about that calm, deliberate rhythm followed me into the elevator, into the train, into my apartment. That night, as I reheated leftover pasta, my mind kept replaying his expression, the way he said, "Yes, sir," the way he didn't flinch at the laughter. It wasn't submission, it was peace, a kind of quiet strength that corporate boardrooms didn't understand. I couldn't explain why it unsettled me so deeply. Maybe because I'd spent years fighting to be respected in a world that measured worth by job titles. And here was a man who seemed to possess a deeper kind of respect, one that came from within. The next morning, the building's lobby was filled with the buzz of early meetings, phones ringing and elevators dinging in rhythm. As I walked to my floor, I saw Mr. Harris by the reception, helping the front desk intern adjust the coffee machine. He smiled when he saw me. "Morning, Miss Collins." I nodded, a bit caught off guard. "Morning, Mr. Harris." He chuckled softly. "Just Harris is fine. I've been called Mr. enough times in my younger days." I didn't know how to respond, so I smiled awkwardly and went inside. Throughout the day, I noticed small things. How he always arrived before anyone else, how he greeted every employee by name, and how the atmosphere seemed lighter when he was around. People said he'd been with the company for over 5 years, had never missed a shift, and had never complained. But the more I observed, the more I sensed there was something beneath that polite exterior, a depth that didn't fit his job title. That Friday, our director called a late meeting, and by the time it ended, it was well past 8 p.m. Most of the staff had left. I stayed back to review reports. From the window, the city lights shimmered like tiny galaxies across the dark lake. I decided to grab some water, and as I walked down the hallway, I heard faint voices coming from the storage room behind the break area. One older, one young. Curious, I followed the sound. The door was slightly open. Inside, I saw Mr. Harris sitting on a small wooden chair beside a young boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, dressed in worn clothes and holding a crumpled notebook. "Now, tell me, kiddo, if you have 5 apples and give away 2, how many do you have left?" The boy hesitated, counting on his fingers. 3. Mr. Harris clapped gently. "Exactly, and that's the power of using your mind." He smiled, the kind of smile that belonged in a classroom, not a janitor's closet. I stood frozen at the door, watching him patiently explain subtraction using bottle caps. The boy's eyes glowed with pride when he got it right. I stepped inside quietly. "Mr. Harris." He turned, startled, then smiled. "Oh, evening, ma'am. Sorry if we're disturbing anyone." "This is Caleb. He lives nearby. His mother works the night shift downstairs. I just help him with homework when my duties are done." I looked around. The shelves were lined with cleaning supplies, yet a small corner was cleared, covered with an old mat and a few children's books stacked neatly. "You teach him here? After hours?" "Yes, ma'am. I used to be a teacher once, in Georgia. Ran a small school for kids who couldn't afford tuition. We didn't have much, but we had purpose. When the roof collapsed one summer storm and the funds dried up, I came to the city to find work. Ended up here. Life's funny that way." He said it with a light clucker, but I could hear the sadness beneath it. "Do you ever miss teaching?" I asked softly. He looked down, then smiled. "Yes, every day. But teaching isn't about chalk or classrooms. It's about passing something on, even if it's just hope." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I watched him hand the boy a granola bar, saying, "Don't forget to eat. Learning needs energy." When the boy left, I lingered. "Mr. Harris, I think I've met you before." He raised an eyebrow, curious. "Really? Maybe in another life." I smiled faintly. Maybe. But later that night, when I got home, something compelled me to dig through an old photo box my mom had sent last year. Between faded school certificates and birthday pictures, I found it. A class photo from 3rd grade. A younger me, grinning with missing teeth, standing next to a tall man in a checkered shirt with the same gentle eyes. On the back, written in blue ink, it said, "Emma Collins, a bright student with a bright future," by Mr. Harris. My breath caught. It couldn't be. But it was. My janitor. The man cleaning our office floors was my first teacher. The one who taught me multiplication, who brought apples to class to make math fun, who told me, always stay kind, even when the world isn't. I felt a lump in my throat. Somehow, I had forgotten the face that started my entire journey. The next morning, I arrived early and waited by the lobby. When he walked in, carrying his usual thermos, I smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Harris." He smiled back. "Morning, Miss Collins." I hesitated, then said, "You taught me when I was 8. He froze, squinting. Then his eyes softened with recognition. "Emma, from Oak Ridge Elementary." I nodded, fighting the sting of tears. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "Well, I'll be damned. You grew up just like I thought you would. Smart, steady, and kind." I laughed weakly. I think I lost that kindness somewhere along the way. He placed the gentle hand on my shoulder. "No, you just buried it under responsibility. Happens to the best of us." I wanted to say something, thank him, apologize, anything. But before I could, someone called my name, and the moment passed. That evening, I wrote a note to myself on a sticky pad. Remember what matters. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let the man who built my foundation end his story as just the office janitor, not when he was meant to teach the world. If you believe some people come into your life for a reason, hit like and subscribe, because what happens next will make you rethink what success truly means. The following week passed in a blur of meetings, emails, and endless deadlines. But no matter how hard I tried to focus, my mind kept drifting back to that photo, the handwritten note, and the man who had unknowingly walked back into my life. Every time I saw Mr. Harris pushing his cleaning cart through the hallway or tidying up the break room, I couldn't stop wondering how someone with such quiet wisdom ended up here, invisible to the very world he helped shape. By Thursday, curiosity had replaced confusion, and after everyone had left, I found myself walking toward the storage room again. The familiar glow from the small desk lamp spilled out into the dark corridor, and the faint sound of laughter filled the air. I picked inside. Mr. Harris sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 2 more children this time, their eyes wide with focus as he explained the math problem using coins. "See, learning isn't about numbers," he said, his tone patient. "It's about understanding how things connect." The kids nodded eagerly. I couldn't help but smile. When the lesson ended, I stepped inside, and he looked up with that same gentle smile. "Miss Collins," he said warmly, "you're becoming quite the regular visitor." I laughed softly. "I guess I am. You've built something special here, you know that?" He shook his head modestly. "Oh, I just keep the place clean, ma'am. Maybe make a little space for learning along the way." I leaned against the doorframe. "No, you've done more than that. You've given them something they'll never forget." He paused for a moment, eyes glimmering under the light. "You really think so?" "I know so," I said quietly, and his smile deepened. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about what he represented, a reminder that purpose doesn't die when circumstances change. That weekend, I visited my mother, who was still living in the small house where I'd grown up. Over coffee, I showed her the photo. "Mom, do you remember him?" She squinted for a moment, then gasped softly. "Oh my goodness, Mr. Harris! He used to walk 2 miles to school every morning, rain or shine. You loved his class. You cried for a week when we moved." I smiled faintly. "He's working at my office now." Her eyes widened. "You're joking." "I'm not," I said quietly. "He's the janitor." My mom went silent, then whispered, "Life's strange, isn't it? But maybe it's not a coincidence. Maybe it's a second chance." Those words stayed with me all weekend. Monday morning, I arrived early again. The office was still waking up, the janitorial staff cleaning windows, lights flickering on one by one. I walked to the conference room and saw Mr. Harris arranging chairs for a morning meeting. "Good morning," I said. He looked up. "Ah, the early bird. How was your weekend?" "Eye-opening," I said, hesitating before adding, "Mr. Harris, I found something." He looked curious. "A photo of you and me from my 3rd grade class." His face froze, then softened into disbelief. "You're that little Emma," he said slowly. I nodded, smiling through tears. "You used to tell me I could do anything if I just kept learning." He chuckled, shaking his head in amazement. "And you did, didn't you? Look at you now." I swallowed hard. "You don't understand. You're the reason I even believed I could get here. I never thanked you for that." His eyes grew glassy. "You just did." That afternoon, I couldn't focus on work. My head spun with memories, the classroom, the smell of chalk, his soft laugh as he helped me with fractions. I realized that the very lessons that had shaped my confidence had come from a man most people in my office didn't even notice. It wasn't right. He deserved more. That evening, I stayed late again, opening old budget files, proposals, and training initiatives that the company had shelved years ago. I drafted something new, the Horizon Learning Initiative, a simple concept, an after-hours educational program for employees' children and low-income neighborhood kids, built inside the company itself. No fancy branding, just a genuine purpose. I listed one name at the top: Program Director Samuel Harris. The next day, I asked him to come to my office. He knocked softly, probably thinking he was in trouble. "You wanted to see me, ma'am?" he asked politely. "Yes, come in." I slid the proposal across my desk. "I want you to read this." He frowned, adjusting his glasses, reading slowly. "The Horizon Learning Initiative. An educational program here. For kids?" "Yes, for kids like Caleb and for employees who need help with their children's education. And I want you to lead it." He blinked, stunned. "Me? But Emma, I'm just a janitor." "No," I said firmly. "You're a teacher. You always were." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't know what to say." I smiled softly. "You already said it years ago. Learning never stops. This is your classroom again." He closed the folder slowly, his hands trembling. "I don't know if I deserve this." "You do, more than anyone.
That night, I walked out of the office feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, success didn't feel like a title or a paycheck. It felt like a purpose. The next morning, I'd arrived early again. Mr. Harris was already there. This time, not cleaning, but arranging books in a freshly painted room. A few children sat excitedly on the carpet, ready to learn. He looked up at me and smiled. "I guess you're right, Miss Collins. The classroom just changed walls." I smiled back. "No, Mr. Harris, the classroom found its way home." If you believe some teachers never stop teaching, hit like and subscribe, because in the next chapter, you'll see how one man's quiet purpose transforms an entire company.
The morning the program launched felt like something out of a movie. The usually tense office lobby was alive with laughter, balloons, and the faint sound of children chattering as they followed Mr. Harris through the newly renovated learning room. Sunlight streaming across colorful shelves stacked with donated books and art supplies. The sign above the door read, "The Horizon Learning Initiative, Empowering Future Minds." And just beneath it, in small golden letters, Director Samuel Harris. I stood there watching as employees who once rushed past him now stopped to shake his hand. The same people who barely noticed his presence were now thanking him for teaching their kids. It was a quiet revolution, not born of power, but of respect. As I walked through the office that day, everything felt different. Lighter somehow, like the air carried a story everyone wanted to be part of. Later, during the company town hall, our regional director, Mark Reynolds, called me up to present the project. He looked at the packed audience and said, "When Emma first proposed this, I'll admit I didn't see the point, but she told me something that stuck. Real growth isn't just in profit, it's in purpose. And now, seeing the smiles out there, I understand." He gestured toward Mr. Harris, sitting in the front row, wearing a clean white shirt and a quiet, humble smile. "And none of this would exist without this man," Mark added, "the janitor who reminded us what leadership really looks like." The crowd stood up, clapping, some even whistling. Mr. Harris looked overwhelmed, shaking his head softly, whispering, No, I just did what I love." I walked over and handed him the microphone. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke, his voice trembling but clear. "You all call me Mr. Harris, but today I feel like a student again, because I've learned something here too. I've learned that kindness doesn't need a title, and purpose doesn't need permission." The room went silent, every word sinking deep. When I lost my school back home, I thought my story as a teacher was over, but maybe stories don't end. They just wait for the right chapter. That night, after everyone left, I found him alone in the classroom, stacking chairs neatly, the same way he used to stack cleaning supplies. "You don't have to do that anymore," I said, smiling. He chuckled. "Old habits die hard." I leaned against the doorway. "Do you ever miss your old school?" He looked out the window for a long moment, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Every day. But this brings a piece of it back." He paused and then said softly, "You know, Emma, when you were a little girl, you once asked me what success means. I told you it was about making a difference, even if no one claps. You remembered that." I smiled. "You gave me the definition. I just finally understood it." Weeks passed, and the Horizon Initiative grew beyond anything we expected. Employees started volunteering after hours, local schools reached out to partner, even corporate media picked up the story. Chicago company turned storage room into free learning center for kids. The photos showed Mr. Harris surrounded by smiling children, chalk dust on his hands, the same expression he must have worn decades ago when he taught me. One afternoon, when we were cleaning up after class, he turned to me and said, "I've been thinking. I'm not young anymore.
One day I'll have to step aside. You'll need someone to keep this going. I shook my head. We'll cross that bridge later. For now, just enjoy this. He smiled knowingly. You remind me of your mother, always planning 3 steps. I laughed. Maybe, but I learned that from you. Then came the day I didn't expect. The day he didn't show up. It was a Friday morning. The classroom was quiet. His coffee mug still sat on the desk. I called his phone. No answer. Hours later, I got the message. Mild heart attack. Stable, but resting at home. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding. When I saw him lying there, pale but smiling, I couldn't stop the tears. I scared me, I said. He chuckled weakly. I just needed a day off, didn't I? I squeezed his hand. Don't joke like that. He smiled faintly. Promise me one thing, Emma. Don't let a light fade. I won't, I said through tears. He nodded. Then we're even. You gave me back my classroom. I gave you back your purpose. A few months later, we dedicated the classroom in his honor. A brass plaque by the door now reads, The Samuel Harris Learning Room, where kindness teaches first. I stood there during the ceremony, giving my speech, my voice steady but my heart trembling. Mr. Harris taught us that no job is small, that dignity lives in every act of care, and that the greatest leaders are often the ones we overlook. When I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, and as the applause echoed through the halls, I looked up at his photo on the wall, smiling, calm, eternal, and whispered, You did it, Mr. Harris. You changed the world, one lesson at a time. Now, every Friday evening, when the last light in the office dims and the laughter of children fades into the night, I sit in that room for a few minutes, just listening to the silence he left behind. It's not empty. It's packed, full of gratitude, full of echoes of chalk and laughter, full of the lessons that built us all. And every time I walk past that plaque, I remember that titles come and go, but impact stays forever. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of that one teacher who changed your life, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because some stories deserve to be passed on.